Hey garden friends, it's Lindsey here, the Front Yard Gardener. Thanks so much for joining me today for the top 10 things to know when starting marigolds in soil blocks. If you're like me, you've been planting marigolds in the vegetable garden for years, but perhaps this is your first time starting them from seed, or maybe it's your first time starting them in soil blocks. Either way, let's get into it. The first thing to know is when to start them. Marigolds can be started anywhere from 8 weeks right up until your last frost date. For me in central Alberta, I'm in zone 3B. That means my last frost date is around May 31st. Most gardeners around here will tell you that you're safe anytime after May long weekend, but it's always wise to check your 7 and 14 day forecasts when you're getting ready to plant out in the garden. Today is March 27th. I'm about 9 weeks before my last frost date, so I'm about a week early, but that's okay. If any of the marigolds end up getting too big and they need to go out earlier, I'll simply plant them out and cover them with frost cloth for about a week or two until the danger of frost has passed. Number 2, sow the seed with the seed coat down and the ray floret up. Marigolds are great self-seeders in the garden. In nature, when the seed drops, for the most part, they land flat. With soil blocks, especially the 3/4 inch blocks that I'm using today, there simply isn't enough room to plant them flat. So our next best option is to plant them with the body of the seed down and the tail up. Marigolds are neat little seeds. They almost look like mini carrots. Like a carrot, it's okay if the top sticks out of the soil. What matters is that we cover the seed coat or the body of the seed. Number 3, marigolds don't need light to germinate. Many flowers do need light to germinate. The marigold is not one of them. These seeds prefer to be about 1/4 inch deep as opposed to being surface sown. Once we finish sowing all the marigolds, we'll place the tray on the shelf, not under direct light, and cover with another seed tray or a bag to help keep the light out. I've got a stack of these foam meat trays that were given to me by a friend. They're light, they don't put any stress on the soil blocks, and I can wash them and reuse them again and again. The point of my story is to use what you have. You don't need to buy anything special here. You want to keep them dark for the first 3 to 4 days or until they start to sprout. Keep in mind that can be longer if your room is cold or you're doing this outside in a greenhouse. Once that happens and they're sprouted, uncover them, put them under the grow light. Depending on the strength of your bulbs, you'll want to lower your light between 2 and 4 inches above the plant. This will prevent the seedling from getting leggy as it reaches up for the light. Number 4, marigolds do not need a heat mat. You really have to give it to marigolds. They are not fussy. In my seed starting room, the ambient temperature is about 22 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit for our American friends. Marigolds need a soil temp above 15 or 60 Fahrenheit. So just sitting on the shelf is plenty warm enough for germination. Number 5, marigolds don't need to be cold stratified. Unlike poppies or pansies, marigolds do not require any chill hours before planting. This means as soon as your seeds come in the mail or you pick them up from the store, you can get growing. That is great news for those of us that struggle with the patience department. Number 6, marigolds don't require special soil. Everyone has their own mix or blend of soil they prefer when it comes to soil blocking. Some people use specialized seed starting mix, others prefer compost, others do straight potting soil. The garden is a living, breathing science experiment. There is no right or wrong answer when it comes to choosing the best soil. If you're wanting to make your own blend, a quick Google search will find you a plethora of soil blocking recipes. My recipe is simple. I use ProMix organic potting soil from Canadian Tire, but truly any potting soil will do. If I had the option, I would likely purchase a pre-mixed soil blocking medium like the Vermont Compost Fort Lee mix. Unfortunately, mixes like that just aren't available in my area. Could I make my own? You bet. Am I going to? No. Not this year anyways. Maybe next year, we'll see. Number 7, soil blocked marigolds starts are less likely to suffer from damping off. Oh, damping off. If you're new to seed starting, you may not have heard that term yet, but if you've been at this for a while, chances are not only do you know what I'm talking about, you've experienced it. Damping off is caused by overwatering, or as I like to call it, over-loving your seedlings. Soil blocks are a great way for beginner gardeners and experts to be able to monitor the moisture levels in the soil and prevent damping off. The secret is in the bottom watering. Add water to your seedling tray and let it soak for 15 to 30 minutes. Any water left on the tray after that, pour it off. This allows the plant to soak up what it needs, and by pouring off the excess, you're less likely to experience the fungus that causes the dreaded damping off. Once seedlings mature to the point where they've got their first set of true leaves, you're less likely to experience damping off. Don't worry, you will get the hang of it. Watch the color of the soil as it dries from the morning to the night, and then watch it again as it changes to that rich, dark chocolate brownie color once it's been watered. Depending on the temperature in your grow room and your growing medium, you may need to water both morning and evening with the smaller 3/4 inch soil blocks. Right now, I water in the morning and check them at night. Typically once a day is enough for my starts. You do want them to dry out a bit between waterings, but not to starve. Number 8, marigolds need to be potted up. I like starting most of my things in the tiny 3/4 inch soil blocks, just to ensure that I'm not wasting any space on my grow shelf. I have one shelf and one shelf only, so I need to be really cautious about how much room things take. I'll be potting up the marigolds into 2-inch soil blocks to live out the rest of their days in the house once I've gone through and picked through my seedlings and just sorted out the healthiest, happiest of them all. From there, the 2-inch soil blocks can be planted right out into my beds. If you're doing the square foot gardening method, you can plant 4 marigolds per square, but I'm using these as a pest deterrent, so I'll be spreading them out evenly around my raised beds, using them as a border. Now, you could start with the 2-inch soil blocks right off the hop. Just make sure that you're sowing 2 to 3 seeds per block to ensure germination, and then thin out the weakest plants. Personally, I'm only using the 4-inch soil blocker for tomatoes and peppers. Everything else is good at that 2-inch size. Number 9, they won't get root bound. One of the best things about soil blocks is how little root disturbance there is when you transplant them. Unlike traditional planting in pots, when the marigold's roots reach the end of the soil block, it will self-prune, otherwise known as air pruning. This handy little feature prevents them from growing out any further and twisting and tangling themselves the way that they would in a pot. When you live in the north like I do, sometimes we can't plant out when we originally thought we could. Snowstorms happen all the time, and that sets us back. With soil blocks, you don't have to get them in the ground right away. If they end up sitting on the shelf for another couple weeks, it's okay. They're not going to be root bound. This is a huge win in my book. And number 10, last but certainly not least, marigolds take 45 to 50 days to bloom, so be patient. One of the benefits of starting seeds indoors, especially if you're in a colder climate like me, is earlier blooms. I like to have something in the garden for the bees as soon as possible in the spring. I haven't got any dandelions in my garden, so I want to make sure I've got something out there. Marigolds provide a lovely breakfast for the bees after a long cold winter and a bit of color against the brown backdrop that is my veggie garden in May. These lovely little flowers are very hardy, and since I'm not growing them for cut flowers, I'm much braver when it comes to putting them out early. Can you direct sow marigolds? You bet. But I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you're looking for an early bloom too. Thanks so much for sticking with me till the end. If you're still here, bless you. I hope this video has inspired you to give soil blocking marigolds a try. It's not a sponsored video. The links that I've placed below are for the products that I personally use and I've had success with. Good luck and happy gardening.